Alright, what's up everybody? Navi here for another quick update video. Just going to do a single target DPS update. In the middle of Act 2 here in the Titan Grotto, killing everyone's favorite Colossus. As you can see, the single target DPS is still more than good enough. Mana costs a little bit more rough with the higher level my gems are at this point, but still plenty good enough to take down one of the more annoying bosses in the game. I also wanted to take an opportunity here, because I don't have much to update in terms of my gear. It's pretty much exactly the same as it was in the previous video. I wanted to take a moment to talk about some of the differences that I've noticed between Path of Exile 2 and the reason that I haven't posted a video in a few days. Last Epoch, I did take a few days off of PoE 2 to give Last Epoch a try, and so I'm going to head back to my hideout here to take a break from the game here and just talk a little bit about what I view the differences are between Path of Exile 2 and Last Epoch. So, yeah, in terms of my character here, I don't really have anything new to update. All my gems, gear, passives, it's all exactly the same. I've made it over here to the last minion cluster. Super exciting stuff here on the passive tree. But, yeah, so let's start with one question. Why did I stop playing PoE 2 to play Last Epoch? Well, that's obvious. They were coming out with a new release. I have played Last Epoch before, and I remembered having a good time, so I decided to give it a try. I played it for about 3 or 4 days and made it through the end of the normal monoliths, and I don't know, I just kind of got a little bit bored. I think another contributing factor is the build that I was playing didn't really have any fully fleshed out guides for it, so I kind of felt like a little overwhelmed in terms of what to do. And I might go back to it, but it did give me some time to sort of process what the differences are between these two styles of games, what I like more, and what I think Path of Exile 2 can still improve on moving forward. So the number one thing that I want to talk about in terms of the differences here between these games is the loot. So, sorry, let me pull up the map here. So, before I started the video, I emptied my inventory and I went to the Valley of the Titans, okay? So this is a pretty big zone where you have to clear out, you know, pretty much most of the zone to find all three of the little, what are they, like altars or something? You also find this empty medallion spot. When you click on all three of the altars, it unlocks the entrance to the Titan Grotto, and then you go in there and you kill the boss to collect the Flame Ruby, which is the quest item that you need. That's the whole purpose of going here. So I emptied out my inventory before I went there, and I saved everything of note in those two zones. So 2 full zones, and granted, I've got a pretty strong build for Act 2 Cruel, level 54. You know, I'm able to pretty much shit stomp my way through all the monsters, and this is my loot. So I got, ironically, the exact same unique focus that I'm using, so that's cool. Let's see if that's an upgrade. It's like basically the same, maybe a downgrade, so whatever. I'm not going to use that. I also found these boots. These are trash. And I found this ring. I don't think this is Regal worthy. Maybe Jonathan would disagree with me, but I think this is also sell as well. Or, you know, disenchant, whatever. I found a Chance Shard, an Artificer's Orb, that's nice, and an Uncut Support Gem level 3. That's my first level 3 gem that I found on this playthrough. I also found, of course, some Transmutes, Augments, Wisdom Scrolls, and a Blacksmith's Whetstone. That's it. That's all that I found that was worth picking up in Valley of the Titan and Titan Grotto. 2 full zones that I cleared, I would say, the majority of monsters in, and I found this. I also did pick up some magic quality, blue quality items, identify them, and see if they were worth regaling. I wouldn't have used them because my gear is pretty much set up for playing all the way through, to the beginning of maps. But just, simulating a first-time experience, I picked up some blue items, identified them. None of them really stood out to me as being Regal worthy. A lot of the gear was stuff that my character couldn't equip in the first place because I have no dexterity and not a lot of strength. I even picked up a couple of white quality items. They were bases that I recognized that my character might have wanted to put on. And I transmuted those and augmented those, and granted it was just a couple of pieces, but none of those hit anything either. So I would say one of the biggest differences between the two games for me is that in Path of Exile you are absolutely starved for loot. I spent probably 15 minutes clearing Valley of the Titan and Titan Grotto, getting to that boss and killing it, and this is all I have to show for it, right? I have about a fourth of an inventory worth of stuff here. In Last Epoch, if you play for 15 minutes, you can fill up your entire stash. I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not really. I mean, there is so much stuff dropping, much of which is garbage, but there's so much stuff dropping that you're getting those, I guess, dopamine hits all the time. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that one of those things is better than the other. I'm just saying that that's what the difference is. So in Last Epoch, you are just getting showered with loot. In Path of Exile, it is pretty much the opposite. I do not have a loot filter on as well, as far as I'm aware. Oh, I do have a... Okay, so I have, like, the base loot filter. I'm filtering out a couple of, like, crappy bases. That's it. In Last Epoch, if you did not play with a loot filter, or if you played with a super, like, lax loot filter, your screen would just be full of loot. That's another big difference. Last Epoch has a really nice in-game loot filter system that is like completely customizable, perfect for SSF gaming. It's actually kind of incredible. The only way that it works though is because items drop identified in the Last Epoch. If items dropped unidentified, then I don't think that loot filter would be nearly as good. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that that's what we would want in Path of Exile 2, but it's just another big difference. Another major difference in between the games for me is just the pacing, obviously. Path of Exile 2 is just much more slow, much more methodical. This is how fast I'm moving. There are no travel skills in this game. There's like Blink with a cooldown, which requires like 60 spirit. Nobody's running that. There's Shield Charge, which has got like this weird wind-up and like pathing that's just kind of... I don't know who thinks that's a good travel skill, because it's not. And then am I missing something? I mean, maybe there's another travel skill? I don't know. The travel skills in this game are pretty terrible to just being not really travel skills at all. So you're basically just walking and rolling. In Last Epoch, there is lots of travel skills, and your character just moves naturally faster as well. So that once again leads to that, feeling of I'm going faster, I'm killing monsters faster, I'm getting more loot faster. Definitely a much more fast-paced game, Last Epoch, than Path of Exile 2. Once again, not necessarily saying one is right, one is wrong, just highlighting what the difference is from my experience. And then one thing that I do also want to point out that's a big difference between the games that I think Path of Exile does really, really well, probably one of my biggest gripes with Last Epoch, is the difficulty. So Path of Exile 2 feels like a difficult game right off the bat, and it sort of continues to feel difficult. I know Jonathan and Mark have talked about this ad nauseum. They really would like you to have this sort of slow curve of power progression, so you feel the weakest at the beginning, and as you get gear, as you get skill points, as you get access to new skills, support gems, your character's power increases ever so slightly, and as a result, you feel ever so slightly more powerful compared to the monsters. The ultimate goal, then, of course, is getting to a point where you feel extremely strong, maybe still afraid of a few things, like boss moves and the occasional rare monster, that sort of thing, but for the most part, you feel like a god. And I think, for the most part, Path of Exile 2, in its current state right now, after all the changes to 0.2, I think it does a pretty good job of making you feel that way. I'm not quite happy with where you end up. I'd like all of us to be collectively a little bit stronger at endgame, um, particularly in the defenses category. I feel like the kinds of defenses that you have access to in Path of Exile 2 is lacking, and as such, you feel weak because your defenses suck and you're just vulnerable to way more monsters than you should be, given how much time you've invested in the game. But anyways, I'm digressing. I think Path of Exile 2 does a pretty good job of implementing that sort of scaling difficulty throughout the entirety of the game. I constantly feel like I have to be at least paying attention, playing relatively well, to have a smooth playthrough. In Last Epoch, it's not hard. Like, I didn't even try to play safe, and I made it to level 40, like almost entirely through the campaign before I died for the first time. Um, and I legitimately wasn't even trying to play safe, and I also wasn't trying to build tanky or build defensively at all. So I was basically just turning my brain off and clicking through screens of monsters, and everything was just melting, and I was like, okay, great. I mean, this is fun, I guess, but I don't know. It was a little bit underwhelming from that difficulty standpoint. It was like everything was just brain dead easy. There was no difficulty whatsoever. And I know what I'm getting to, because even in the normal monoliths, the level 90 monoliths, where I'm like level 80 or whatever, it still didn't feel hard. It still felt exactly like I was just shit stomping through every monster in the campaign, and it never got any more difficult. It only starts to feel more difficult once you start pushing higher corruption, and I haven't done that myself, but from hearing from other people, what it sounds like is that your build is kind of okay until it isn't. So you're kind of steamrolling through everything, and then you hit this next level of corruption, and you try to kill monsters, and you're just dead. You don't have enough damage, you don't have enough tankiness, toughness, you just fall over. You can't kill the monsters anymore. So it's like, instead of a smooth progression curve, it's like easy, 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 impossible, right? And it just sort of happens at a certain corruption level. And I might be over-exaggerating. Like I said, I haven't played it to that level myself, but that's the general impression of what I've heard from people who have. And that, I think, is Last Epoch's biggest, that's my biggest issue with Last Epoch, is that it doesn't really reward you for, you don't get that sort of constant feeling of, oh, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting stronger. It's just like, I am strong, I am strong, I am strong, and now I'm weak. And it's like, I don't know, I don't really get it. It's not my favorite aspect of the game. Now, one thing that I will do for Last Epoch here is just give them big props on the item progression. I think that system is incredibly well done. I love it, actually. In fact, I'm kind of tempted, not right this second, but I am tempted to go back and play some more, maybe with a build guide that's a little bit more fleshed out into the end-to-end game, because the item progression in that game is really, really cool. If you've never played Last Epoch before, I highly recommend you check it out. The Exalted mods, being able to filter for those, and then being able to put those onto legendary items, making, sort of putting those on unique items to make your legendary items. I think that's a really, really cool system. And just the crafting system in general, being able to like seal affixes and getting those upgrades, the crit upgrades on your tiers of affixes and everything, it just feels really, really good. It still helps the items on the ground feel valuable, which is something that PoE 2 is trying to do. And I don't know, it lends itself really well to an SSF style of gameplay, because you are dropping lots and lots of items. You're going to be able to get lots of kinds of exalted modifiers that you want to put on gear, maybe for different characters as well. So big W on the item progression from Last Epoch, but just in terms of overall character progression and character feel, not my favorite. I think I much prefer the feeling of your character's power level in Path of Exile 2. So those are some of the differences that I've experienced between the games. I like both games. I think that if I'm looking for a more serious game to sit down and play, I think that's going to be Path of Exile 2 for me. If I'm looking for more of a, let me just turn my brain off and go grind some monsters and pick up some items, then Last Epoch is probably the game for me. I think that with Path of Exile 2, they still need to tune up the loot a little bit. Like I was saying before, the only thing that I found in 2 zones was a ring that I'm gonna vendor, some boots that I'm gonna vendor, and a unique that I already had. That's worse than the one that I have on. So basically, I found nothing. So I'm not saying you have to find an upgrade in every zone. I'm just saying that like the probability of me finding an upgrade in any zone is too low, and half this stuff that I'm finding, half these rare items that I'm finding, I can't even put on because of how strict the attribute requirements are in Path of Exile 2. We don't have any big attribute nodes on the tree, so I can't grab like 30 strength or 30 dex over here so that I can actually equip some of the stuff that I'm finding. I do appreciate that contributes to the difficulty and sort of the nuance of how you gear and fill out your character. But God, it just feels bad. It just feels bad when you're going through zone after zone after zone on a worse build, mind you, than mine. We're talking about like a first playthrough or maybe an SSF playthrough. And you're just not finding anything. You're just killing monsters, killing monsters, killing monsters, and you're just not finding anything. You go interact with one of these wisps, it travels through like 30 different monsters on your way to the rare monster, you kill all those things, you think you're going to be rewarded, and then it drops like a blue item and a flask, and you're like, really? Like, who is creating this algorithm that generates the loot for these wisps? Like, did they even test it? I really don't get it. So, sorry, I'm just complaining a little bit about the. I don't know. I've complained about this before about PoE 2 with specifically the 0.2 update. I really feel like the features that they put in the game, they did not test adequately to see if they felt good. I think that they feel bad, or they felt bad on release. I know in one of the future updates here that's going to be coming after the holiday there in New Zealand, they're going to be doing some improvements to the wisps. They're going to be doing some improvements to raising the floor of boss loot. I think that's a good thing. I'm not sure if it's going to be adequate, but yeah, I don't know. That's currently how I feel. The loot still just feels pretty bad in Path of Exile 2. So, all right. Well, this is getting pretty long, and I don't want this to turn into just another rant session. Still love the game. Love PoE 2. It is beautiful. As I was traveling through, specifically, which zone was it? Let's see. Trader's Passage, I believe. Where is that? Somewhere around here. Yes. This is a beautiful zone. Here, I'll just travel to it really quickly because of just how beautiful it is. I love the underground nature of it. I love the lighting effects. The part where you like travel up the staircase, it's like a significant part of the map that you have to travel through to get up there to Balbala and the Halani Gates entrance. I think that's just a really beautiful area. Oh, hey, look at that loot. This is like my 4th level 1 unique spear. Awesome. Add it to my collection. So yeah, still love the game. I think it's beautiful. I'm going to be playing some more PoE 2. There's some other things that I want to give a try. Crossbows specifically. So hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.